Okay guys, welcome back to part 3. One of the key factors of the spark gap, which I would need to mention to you, is the spark gap needs to be extremely close together on all 3 spark gaps. We want it a Stanley whip's blade apart from each other. So get your Stanley knife inside each of them and then push these together and make sure each of them is a Stanley width apart. You don't want it to be too too far apart. Too far apart, the frequency tends to rise, and then you tend to get sort of an arc in it, the capacitors and things like that. So you want them nice and close. So you want to do that for all 3 of them. So once, as I said in part 2, you should be done with this now. So like I said, you can use a tungsten steel rod or you can use galvanized bolts. I would go for tungsten steel rod personally. You can find these on eBay, AliExpress. Obviously, I've got the parts list down below as well, or somewhere on the page. So that is, that's this bit done. So now we're at this bit done, we can then talk about how to connect up the capacitors and what I've done for that. Okay. All right, guys. So the next part is to get a piece of wire. Normal piece of wire, can be any thickness, and what you're going to do is you're going to coil it round itself so it's just an exposed piece of wire with no insulation, just like that. And then what you're going to do is, just like with the other capacitors, we're going to solder that piece of wire. I don't know if you can see that. We're going to solder that piece of wire onto the ends of the capacitors. Nice bit of solder on there, and you're going to do that for all of them. And then you're going to have a little piece of wire which is going to come out. This comes into a chock block, but yours doesn't have to. Yours can just be like that, a long piece of wire which comes off the end, and then you can solder another piece of wire into that for there, for example. But we need that across all of them, every single one. We're going to join them all up. So we're going to do that for both sets of capacitors. So obviously we've got our 6 capacitors there, and then we've got another 6 capacitors here. I'm going to show you how that's all connected to the spark gap in a minute, but that is what we're going to do. We're going to connect them up like that. We're going to solder them, and then we're going to go from there. So once that's done, guys, let's move on to the next bit. All right, guys, so a quick recap. So this is where we should be at. So you have your plug on here, all right? And I think I made a mistake last time, but that is the live and neutral. These two here, these 2 first terminals on this one in particular. So you have your live and neutral there, and then that comes out into here, into your ZVS, and obviously we've already done the potentiometer, which is in there. That comes out to your ZVS, to your flyback. Your flyback has a wire which goes to your first set of capacitors, okay? So that first set of capacitors then comes into here, obviously from your transformer to here, into there. So you should have one wire to there, one wire to there, and then another wire coming out into here. I've just chock blocked it for now. Into there, feeding into this side of the spark gap, and same on this side. One wire coming out and feeding into this wire of the spark gap, and then going off. Same as that one there, that one's going off to our next set of capacitors. This one here going off to our next set of capacitors. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what we're going to connect onto here and here, okay? Okay guys, so some of you have seen I've had a Udon coil in the pattern, but you don't have to build a Udon coil if you don't want to. You can build one of these D'Arsonval coils. Like I said, they're 2.5 millimeters clockwise at the top, so do about 10 turns of that, and then thick D'Arsonval coil that can just go clockwise as well, and that's about 7 turns, and then another coil underneath of the same thickness going anti-clockwise, so clockwise and anti-clockwise. That's how I've designed it, and obviously the bulbs then connect off back through to these. They connect off back through there. So one of these is coming through, and the other end of this wire is feeding the bulbs. So if that makes any sense. If you have any questions, guys, let me know. I'll be happy to answer anything. And obviously that then connects onto there. And if we go back through the circuit, all the way back, all the way back, all the way back, all the way back to where the plug is about to plug in, and we're going to test it all now, make sure everything works, and then go from there. But this is just a simple, laid out, as clear as I can make it, all the way down to that. Hopefully this all makes sense, nice and clear. These are just crocodile clips, which I've just clipped on the ends. So that's pretty much the whole invention, really, the whole circuit. So these bulbs, obviously you can attach them onto yourself. Obviously be careful, don't touch any of this stuff, because you know it's got a lot of voltage going through it, and this is the circuit. So you have a point of up in the voltage, a point of compression, a point of refraction, and then compression, and then refraction with a nice thick cable, if that makes any sense. So it's creating a longitudinal wave, a scalar wave. So that's that. Let's fire it up and make sure it all works. All right, guys, so about to turn the power on. Here we go. I swapped out the bigger one, put the big one back on, just so we can really test it and make sure that everything's definitely working. This one's a smaller amperage one, so I've just unscrewed it for now. Put the big 15 amp on, the big one on, and then redone the, put that back in the dimmer, because that was the one I originally took off. So that way we can see it, test it, and see how powerful it is. All right, guys. So like I said, this is all laid out. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Right, as you can see, there was a bit of arcing there. I had this problem before where these screws need to be screwed down a bit more, just to make better contact. But obviously, like I said, this is just my first iteration of it when I first made my machine and got it to work properly. So I was pretty happy that it just worked. So yeah, as you can see, everything works fine. Bulbs are working, that's all good. So that's it, that's the simplicity of the machine. Comes through here, through to there, in there, as I showed you all the wiring. And obviously I put this one on just to see how powerful it would be, and it's all working fine. So yeah, happy days, that's it.